part of Capital City College Group. You're on one of our sites today, which is the Westminster Kingsway College site, and we are delighted to be hosting this series of entrepreneurial events this week. We're working very closely with Westminster City Council, and we really appreciate their support. We've got Vissionaires, and we've also got Unlock, who are really helping the local community. Now, this is part of the Westminster Enterprise Week and Global Entrepreneur Week. I struggle with that word.
It's a big word, isn't it?
It might flow off the tongue. Now, a lot of people do think it's all about money, 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 but it's not. What we understand is most of you have a passion. So if you're one of those people who's sitting there saying, I have a dream, how do I make it a reality? Then these workshops can be an excellent way of getting help and support. Now, we're keen to support all of our communities in setting up new businesses with the practical programs that run every month. And there are staff here who can help you understand more about what those are. But for today, we've got a panel of people who have been brought together to really go through some key areas with you. So I'd like to hand over to Pablo, who will take you to the next stage. But welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jackie. And welcome to you all. I can see, I think, who's been here to a previous session this week? Probably most people. Yeah? So thank you for coming back. And actually, you gave me some feedback yesterday that you need to know a little bit about more who's sitting in front of you. So, so we're going to introduce ourselves in a moment. I'm going to ask you guys to do that. But also, on that scan there, that, what do you call it?
QR code.
QR code. QR, my brain's straight. If you scan that, you can then pick up all of the panelists from all of the days and our LinkedIn pages. If you want to link in with us, you can pick it up off the QR code, okay? So it's all on there, and also who's speaking on each day. And also there's another one out there on the registration desk, the QR code, okay? Did I say who I was? You said who I was.
I said who you were.
Good, okay.
No, I said your name, but not who you actually are.
Okay, so I'm Pablo Lloyd. I'm CEO and co-founder of Vissionaires. So we're putting on these events, and we help people who want to start their business. So let's start on the end. Amanda, why don't you start? Introduce yourself.
Okay, Amanda Dickens. I work with Pablo, and I run the Grow Incubator, Visionaires Grow Incubator. We've only launched about 3 months ago, and what I do is to bring those people who've got brilliant ideas, who've been through the Visionaires program for a few weeks, got their business plan and ready to launch their idea. And if they looking like they're a high growth startup, looking to employ about 10 people over the next couple of years, they've got a sustainability angle, or they want to do good for their community, then those are the people that I work with. And I've been working with 4 startups. Can I name them? Because they're brilliant.
I think so. Yeah.
Good. So Get Stuffed, Flavour Street, Donna, and the Catalyst Collective, and they have been superb. So that's what I do.
Thank you. The way you say this, they all sound like food businesses, but they're not.
No, they're
okay,
not.
Right. Mary, over to you.
Perfect. Hi, I'm Mary. I'm a consultant in PwC. I essentially work with startups and founders who are looking to fundraise. So officially looking to raise between 1 million or above 1 million and forward. But kind of outside of work, naturally I speak to founders and entrepreneurs at earlier stages who are just kind of starting to get their foot in the door in terms of thinking of business ideas and different angles of bringing in money so they can start some of their businesses. And also have I call it a passion project, but a mini business on the side where I essentially buy and sell art and manage some artists. So, yeah.
Thank you. And last but not least, Franklin.
Hi guys, I'm Franklin Asante. I'm a director private banker at Coots, and I look after entrepreneurs. So I manage a portfolio of individuals, guys and girls, cover about 30 different sectors in the economy. So hospitality, hotel owners, restaurant owners, property developers, etc. I guess my side of the spectrum typically is when the entrepreneur has seen some success and therefore needs some wealth management needs. But I think the reality of entrepreneurs is they all tend to be serial entrepreneurs. They never do one business and stop. I've got clients as old as 83 who don't want to retire and they're still going. But it's really following the journey. So I've got clients as young as in their early 20s and clients at 83 and really following the entrepreneur journey, providing a holistic wealth management service to them, both personally and where we can support in the business as well.
Great, thank you. It's kind of reassuring to know there are entrepreneurs out there older than me.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
So maybe I'm just getting started. Okay, so that's so Frank, why don't you tell us a bit about how you got into what you're doing? What kind of what pulled you into this career, this work, and ultimately working with these entrepreneurs?
So I've been a private banker for 13 years now, and it was never really my idea or my plan. It was during 2008, just on the verge of the financial crisis, when everybody was being fired from banking. And I thought that's a great time to join, because you can't do much wrong, right? It's already broken. How much more damage could I do? But I was in communications and media before, and I made that transition into finance purely because I thought if the world needs money to run, right? Everything relies on finance, and by all means, it will be repaired at some stage. And I thought it was a great way for me to bring some transferable skills into a brand new industry. So it was almost entrepreneurial in a sense. I took a massive risk and sort of jumped into this without any sort of prior banking knowledge or history. And over the 13 years, I sort of built my portfolio, done all my banking and financial qualifications, etc. And for the last 7 years, I've primarily just focused with entrepreneurs. So, looking at entrepreneurs across the UK, they have to be UK based. I can't really touch any clients abroad due to cross-border rules. But yeah, and I think, the whole world of entrepreneurship over the last 10, 12 years has changed enormously. When I first started looking after entrepreneurs, they were seen as the people who needed to get a job. Whereas actually in the last 10 years, the government relies on entrepreneurs now for pretty much everything. They go to entrepreneurs to create ideas. Entrepreneurs are the ones who are typically building entities now and creating job opportunities for people. So I think the respect levels for entrepreneurs has shot up through the roof over the last 10 years or so.
Yeah. And if I can ask, what was it? Because obviously going into banking, there's all kinds of different sorts of banking. So how did you finish up working with entrepreneurs as your clients?
Initially, I wanted to go for the city, as in purely focus on hedge fund managers, etc. And then I realised there was probably a lot more to gain from working with people that wanted to make a change. As a banker, you don't really speak up loud about that. When you go to dinner parties, I work in finance, and that's it.
Yeah.
But I think working with entrepreneurs gives you a different edge, because actually you're working with people who are making a greater change for the world than just pocketing money every month. And so I think for me, on a personal level, I really enjoy that actually I'm helping somebody who in turn, I've got clients who have thousands of employees. And so when I help that individual, I know that in return, there are so many more people around the economy who are being helped as a result of that as well. I think that's what really sort of sold it for me.
Yeah. So it's that kind of, that sense of the ultimate impact of your clients that you're dealing with. You can really see what difference that's making, not just economically, but socially as well. Yeah,
absolutely.
Brilliant, thank you. So, Mary, tell us about your journey, how you finished up working with PwC Raise and what you're doing.
Yeah, so mine is probably not as much of a fancy or thought out story. I would say, so I've been in PwC now for 6 years, the last 2 years, which I've been working with founders, fundraising, as well as improving kind of sales and marketing. Starting, if I look back at my journey, going all the way back to, say, high school. So I went to school in Texas, studied economics, my last term of high school, and I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting, so let me study economics in university. Came to Bristol Uni, did economics, and as a graduate, I was like, hey, what am I going to do now? And as an economics student, consulting was one of the top ones, so I was like, sure, sounds interesting enough. That's how I started my journey in consulting in PwC. First few years were pretty good, but after about year 3, 4, in all honesty, I got a bit bored working with large companies and corporates. And in PwC, I was lucky enough that they did have a separate division that basically focused on working with founders and entrepreneurs. And to be honest, I just stumbled across it. Doesn't sound really fancy, but stumbled across it. And this was in 2018, where I actually, with PwC, developed and ran one of our incubator programs. So it was called Scale Up, and it was targeted at startups who had a solution for the government, so the public sector. And that was my kind of first step into the startup and founder world. In 2018, developed the government technology program with PwC, and then from there I took the next step into Raise, where I now specifically work with founders, all different backgrounds, different companies, different sectors, who are essentially needing help in fundraising and bringing equity into their business. So that's a long way to say I just kind of, just came across it.
Yeah. Well, we say, we sort of work with careers advice. We always say career is a verb, not a noun. Career means doing this,
Yeah.
It's not kind of, I've got a plan and, good idea to have a plan, but, you've got to be. And for you, is there a sense like Franklin where the people that you help fundraise for, that, how interested are you in what they're doing in their business and their impact they're having? Is that a part of the joy of your work, or is it something else?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the main thing I would say that I enjoy about my work is basically just speaking to the individuals behind the businesses, so the actual founders. And the first month or so in terms of speaking to a founder and assessing them to see if we want to work with them, it's just getting a feel of that person individually and then their business and what that business has the potential to do. So it is really exciting to, one, just know a bit more about them, how they flow, and then to get closer to what problem they're actually solving and how big it can really, really go in the future. And yeah, it's super, super exciting.
Yeah. And we're going to come back to you both, because you're both in sort of different ways supporting entrepreneurs financially, and we're going to come back to, so how does that really work? But before we do that, Amanda, how did you get to doing what you're doing today? I know the last couple of years of it, but tell us how that whole journey went.
Yeah, so I absolutely had that plan, and it has literally gone all over the place. I was quite young when I realised that I wanted to run my own business. By the time I was 30, I didn't know what it was going to be, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. So after my GCSEs, at age 16, I came to a college just like this, and I decided to do a BTEC National Diploma in Business and Finance. It's not called that anymore, I'm showing my age. It was 1989 when I did that. But I knew that was the direction that I was going. And after that, I got a place at university studying business, and I was the first in my family to do that as well. Then I had a variety of jobs actually in marketing, sales, communications, public relations, which I loved. And then, age 28, decided to go out and do it myself. So as a solopreneur, I set up my own business. Back then it was like early web content and things like that, events like these, anything marketing, communications related. I did that for about 7 years, working with different people. I'd bring them in to do different events and different marketing strategy and plans, that kind of thing. Then I had 3 children, all teenagers now, but I took some time out and looked after the kids for a while. And then after that, I went to work for Big 4 consultancies. So I worked at Deloitte first, and then at PwC, where Mary is now. And that's when I started working with startups. And these startups were working with things like artificial intelligence and virtual reality, that kind of thing. And that was the first thing I did. I built a virtual reality experience, probably still at PwC now actually, and absolutely loved the venture building side of things. So I left there a couple of years ago, and that's what I've been doing, building my own business and now helping others to build their businesses.
So thank you. So we're going to stay with you so we're going to start the conversation about what are the challenges and your different perspectives on the challenges that the businesses you've been involved in whatever way, which are to do with staying profitable, to do with raising investment, to do with managing their cash, everything to do with money, okay? And from your experience, Amanda, what are the things that you have seen as the kind of really kind of tough challenges, and maybe with some of those early stage ventures that you've been involved with, that are the realities of staying financially alive? Yeah.
So I think creating that business plan in the first place from just an idea that's come out of nowhere, I think is really, really hard. And you know for a fact that business plan, as soon as you put it on paper, will change instantly. But you've got to be quite strict with yourself and do your research, really. That's one of the hardest things, is actually finding out whether anyone's going to buy what you want to sell them. So that has been tough. I think I'd say actually raising money outside of the big corporate has been easier than raising it inside. That was tough. You know, the putting a business case together that eventually goes to the board to raise some investment for building that virtual reality experience was one of the toughest things that I've ever had to do. You can imagine the kind of rigour that you had to put down in all of the financial planning for the next 3 years, knowing full well that it'd change a few months later, but that was probably tougher than raising money outside as a startup, as an entrepreneur myself.
And just to unpack that a little bit, because what you're describing there is you're inside a bigger corporation. I don't know if anybody's had this experience, because it's probably a little bit unusual. You're inside a big organisation, and you're trying to get money from inside the organisation to work on the project that you care about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually
and
harder.
That's super challenging, and I've experienced that as well.
Yeah.
And sometimes I find people can overlook that when you're in an organisation, that's actually a good place to look for money as well. Yeah, it doesn't have to be outside raising it on for your own business. You can be inside an organisation and do that. As Amanda said, it doesn't mean it's easier.
No, definitely not. But actually having to put together, a business plan or a business case to raise that money inside a big corporate was brilliant for when I came to do it on the outside.
Yeah.
So, I'd have that, I knew exactly what I needed to do to raise money outside.
Yeah.
It's still tough, absolutely tough, but I learned a lot.
So, Mary, I'm going to come to you now. So you're working with, I think for most of us here, this is kind of big ticket fundraising. I know there's all kinds of levels of, so you're at the 1 million plus level, and when we spoke, you said that actually you work with a lot of businesses that are on their way towards that. So they will be raising £1 million one day, but you're working with them, right from earlier stages. So what kind of advice are you giving them about how they get in a position to raise that, that level of getting someone else to risk their money with them?
Yeah, and I guess on that question, to be honest, it is almost the same regardless on what stage or how much you're looking to raise. Whether you're still at the idea stage, you're going to bring in, a couple of grand versus you're looking to go for 5 million. Some of the biggest pieces of advice is one, and I say this over and over again, but it's around preparation, as simple as it sounds. So if you're looking to raise £5,000 and you're literally just going to a couple of friends and family, or you're looking to go to a high net worth individual to raise 500K, the worst thing that a founder could do is to go with a really, say, poor pitch deck or not have basic financial details already available. So if your friend says, okay, great, sounds like a great business idea, can you email me, I don't know, your numbers, your projections, or the research that you did. Basically being able to put your best foot forward at the beginning. If not, it's really hard as just a human to kind of maybe have a bad impression with someone at the first stage and then undo it. So if you don't come prepared, they may see you as not being totally serious, and then it's a bit difficult to come back from that. So preparing and just getting those basic things together before you even start to have those discussions with friends, family, angels, high net worths, wherever it may be, is really, really important. So yeah, preparation. And secondly, I would say starting close first. So warm introductions are king. And again, that doesn't depend on, or that doesn't matter if you're raising a small amount or you're looking to raise a lot. I'm gonna pick on you two here. So if you're looking to raise £100 and he's your friend, and he introduces you to someone else, to say, oh, I've got a friend who's looking to raise a few £100, that person is more than likely going to listen to what you have to say just because it came through a connection. So yeah, really start close, see who you have in your network already, and this may be a friend of a friend or of a friend, but that's still much better than a really random cold LinkedIn message to someone that may be willing to invest. Now, don't get me wrong, you're still gonna send out 1 million LinkedIn messages and texts and whatnot, but see what you have around your network. And to be honest, I think a lot of you are already in the right place. But when you know, this may be a few years from now, but when you start that journey, because you're already building a network, so you can pick on Amanda, Pablo in a few years' time and ask for introductions. Yeah, starting close. And yeah, I guess the last one is just around relationship. So whoever you bring in money from, depending on how much you're bringing in and how much kind of weight they are going to have on your idea, your business, just think quite closely about it, because they're basically going to be a part of your team. And this is important even at the very, very beginning stages, because technically that person you're taking money from today is going to be with you potentially forever. And sometimes it's hard to kick people out even when you don't want them in 5-10 years from now. And I've heard many horror stories about founders who took £1,000 from an angel investor at the very kind of first few months of their business, and then they're, I don't know, raising 10 million and they're struggling with a bit of a nasty investor at the beginning. But yeah, just think about who you're taking money from at the beginning and quiz them the same way that they may be quizzing you.
Yeah. Go on, Jane.
Can I add? Yeah, so I'm going to add to that. So, taking another tack to that is grant funding, actually. So when I'm working with my really early stage founders, we'll look for the free money first. And actually, once you start, doing your research on Google, tons comes up. It depends on where you are in the country, whether you could be a female founder, ethnic minority. There's something for everybody there, and there's hundreds and hundreds of grants, and they're small. Some can be as small as like £3,000, but that could easily get you going up to £30,000, £50,000 sometimes. So I would always say first go there before you look for the friends and family, because you never know, you might just get lucky.
Yeah. So there's, and I'm hearing there's a really kind of important theme of this, is that now and then somebody will just give you money, but actually it doesn't work like that. It's not a gift. It's you're entering into a relationship with someone, whether that might be a grant funder, an individual who is, they might want that money back, they might not want that money back, but there is a trade and a relationship going on. Whether you like it or not, you're a human being, they're a human being. There's going to be, emotion, there's going to be expectations, there's going to be all of the normal things that we all have with everybody around us, and they're going to be a new friend to you. And if they can stay a friend and you can work through that, that's what we're trying to do here. Yeah, we're trying to build a relationship, not just get money, and that's such an important point that you've drawn out. I'm gonna come to you, Frank, in a moment. Jackie, thank you. I'm just going to ask Mary, there are 3 things you mentioned that I'm going to ask you just to explain, because we might not all understand these terms. First one, pitch deck. What's a pitch deck?
Pitch deck, just a fancy word of the slides that you put together that is explaining what your business is, what it's about, how it potentially will make money or solve whichever problem that you've identified. So yeah, just think of it as a really short, sharp presentation of what you are creating.
Thank you. And we might come back to that, and high net worth individuals.
Yes, so
what does that mean?
Just very rich people who don't give, but they take their money and invest it into founders and businesses. Okay. And angels, that sounded magnificent. Yeah, angels, so that's essentially just more sophisticated individuals who are investing again into founders, into businesses. So they have a bit more of a process in place versus just a rich guy or woman. They have a bit more of a sophisticated process in place to do due diligence on your business, on your pitch deck, on your financials, to dig into it a bit more, and then invest money in return for a share of your business. So they may say, we'll give you £10,000, but we want 10% of your business, which then implies that they actually own the business alongside you. Okay, thank you. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay.
So Franklin, from your own experience, but also the clients you see, what are the challenges you see in exactly what we've been talking about? Do you agree with that? Do you have other insights on?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. I mean, firstly, I would say that, all of you entrepreneurs in there have massive respect for you. It's a tough job. It's unforgiving. Nobody sees the hours you put in, and ultimately, the dreams don't always come to fruition. And so it's a sacrifice that you have to be willing to take. Nobody can take it for you. You have to be the most passionate person about your business. No investor or advisor will be as passionate as you. And if you ever lose that passion, then there's a big problem there. What I would say in terms of advice-wise is learn not to fall in love with the business. Be passionate about it. Fall in love with everything else, your family, your kids, your partner, whoever, your hobbies. But don't fall in love with the business, because sometimes that distracts you from really making the critical decisions you need to make. Another one, don't always assume that because you're a startup, you have to go in from the bottom end, because you can come and price yourself accordingly if you think you have a good enough product and a good enough explanation for why you command the price you command. That you shouldn't always assume that because I'm new, I'm going to give freebies to everybody and discounts to everybody and I'm going to be the cheapest in the market. That isn't always the best strategy. But that said as well, I'm sure you guys all watched Dragon's Den, and you've seen Dragon's Den, right? As mentioned before, be prepared. There's nothing worse than having an opportunity to talk to an investor and you fumble your lines. You forget important information, or there was an occasion where I took an investor to a client, and before that meeting, the client had told me how much money he wanted to raise. When he saw the investor, he changed the amount. And I was there like, what's happened here? What have I missed? And we left with that investor not putting any money into the business, because he said, well, he couldn't justify why he wanted that money. So don't be greedy. If you've got the opportunity to actually raise funds and you think, right, I need £10,000, when somebody comes in front of you with big pockets, don't just say, oh, now I need £30,000, and you can't explain yourself. The truth is, entrepreneurs don't always have to be amazing at every part of the business. And that's a fact you have to kind of establish really early on. Some of you are just great at being the creators. You give birth to the ideas. But don't assume you have to be the financial directors and the operations managers and everything else at once. Of course, when you start, you haven't got the budget to hire people. But the sooner you recognize where your strengths lie, the sooner you can seek help in the other bits that you need to really make a business case solid. All right? So things like bookkeeping, for example. I know lots of young entrepreneurs running really great businesses and their bookkeeping doesn't exist. Well, how on earth do you do your VAT returns? How on earth do you your end of year returns? All that happens is you pay accountants a lot of money for them to do your accounts and your bookkeeping. Whereas actually, if you maybe sign up to some of these online platforms or got somebody and say, look, I want to focus on building my clients in the business. Can you help me with bookkeeping or whatever? That's the best thing to do. So really establish where and what your strengths are. Don't fall in love with it, because if you fall in love with it, sometimes you're blindsided and you can't make critical decisions that you need to make. So I think those are the top tips that I would give.
That's great. And that really hurts me. You can't fall in love with your business. Because I fall in love with all my businesses. And I don't know, can't help it. So
fall in love with other people's businesses as well.
yeah. So, but it's smart advice, because it's retaining that objectivity, because that's how other people look in, because they're not in love with your business until they, and it's, so a little kind of preview there, because you talked about how people handle their tax and everything else. We're going to hear sort of in kind of 40 minutes or so from Enzo, who's going to talk about his business, which is exactly in that space of helping you manage your tax affairs as a new business. And his is also a new business, so it's going to be a really rich kind of interesting story from Enzo. We'll come back to that. But I had to just say that. I just want to kind of just circle back a moment, because you all in different ways talked about, there's a little bit of a higher purpose going on here. We're trying to make a difference. Where and most entrepreneurs, my experience is, you're in it because you really care about it. You may not fall in love with it, maybe, or maybe you have, but it's a work of passion that you want to see that impact and the change it makes in the world, and that's part of what it is. And I'm hearing that from all of you. And then there's this money thing as well, and you don't get to make that change unless your money works out. Yeah, because it's about, you want to do the thing, but you've got to pay your bills, you've got to make it sustainable, you've got to charge the right price, and everything else. So where does that balance lie for the folk that, and I was going to start with you, Frank, the folk that you see with that balance lies, where do you see people where they are all about the money and it doesn't matter what the product is, it's just as long as it makes money, that's fine? Or do you see people the other way around? Where do you see the kind of success stories coming out?
Yeah, I mean, when I say don't fall in love with your business, I don't mean go home and destroy all your images and mood boards. What I mean is, by all means, fall in love with the change you're trying to create. But the business itself, bearing in mind, that's a different entity. When you register your business, it's so-and-so limited. That exists with or without you. Don't fall in love with that, but fall in love with the change that you're trying to make, so that when it comes to the business itself, you can make very critical decisions about it and what's best for the business. And as founders, I think sometimes that's the biggest detachment, removing yourself from the business. A lot of people build businesses that won't exist without them. And if that's the case, then there's a very short time span, right? But that could be a business. I mean, if you're a hairdresser, for example, your business won't exist unless you're doing somebody's hair. But it might be the plan to actually expand and get other hairdressers in your salon to therefore, grow the business. But in terms of the balance, in terms of, do you make a change or is it all about the money? In all honesty, the most successful entrepreneurs I know all started from wanting to make a change. And the money was almost secondary. It's very difficult. If we sit in this room right now and I say to you, right, here's a piece of paper, come up with a business plan, you wouldn't know where to start. A lot of the time, it's very difficult to sit there and think, I'm going to come up with the best idea ever. And if that's the case, you start thinking of very complicated things that is going to require so much capital and time and experience and, go to space and everything else. Whereas actually, someone had a bad taxi ride one day and said, do you know what, I'm going to set up Uber. Right? Or they couldn't order food to the office to Canary Wharf and set up, a food delivery app. It's small things that you don't sit there thinking I'm going to change the world. But it's actually, how do I improve my well-being and my life and the people around me? So I would say that, on balance, the people who are always actually trying to make a genuine change always win.
Really interesting. And Mary, what's your experience of that?
So I was really having a think when you asked the question, because I'm a little on the fence, just to play, spice things up a little bit.
Good, spice it up, go on, yeah.
So, yes, obviously, businesses start, because they have to, they need to be solving some sort of problem or unveiling a problem that, we, the consumers, don't know we have yet, but whenever you bring us a product, we'll realize, okay, here's a problem. So in that sense, that's the initial kind of impact the business is producing or is solving. But in my mind and from experience, I would say eventually as an entrepreneur, you continue in that line of business because you believe it is going to reward, and that reward generally is money. So, I mean, if I think, for instance, my partner as well as my brother, both entrepreneurs. One has a crypto exchange platform, another has an investment platform focused at diverse individuals, so Africans in the diaspora. Both are technically, so the investment platform is technically targeting a problem that, generally speaking, African diaspora people don't have the best education for investing as do others. But the reason why he's continuing to build out this product and to push this application is because he believes it will also make him a lot of money one day. But it's a bit intertwined. If I look at my partner, crypto exchange platform, it's not that it was something that would, have a massive impact on people's lives per se. He, a few years ago, stumbled across crypto, Bitcoin, thought it was really cool. He's interested in that. That was his passion to a degree at that time. But him and his founder stuck with it because it was making them a lot of money at that time. So it's a bit of a tricky one, a balance. Yes, the initial kind of intention and creativity and the idea that you come up with does need to be drawn out of passion and solving something, but then sticking with it. As humans, I think it's a case of it's going to make me money one day. This is a caveat to say, probably in your first few years of, when you start your business and start selling, you won't be making money, right? You won't be profitable more than likely for a few years. That's common depending on what you're doing. But you think eventually I will get there. So I didn't really answer the question, but it's a bit of a mix.
I'm hearing a 50-50 there.
Yeah, it's a bit of a 50-50.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be interested to see what people in the audience think, to be honest, since I believe everyone here is maybe starting a business, maybe looking at that. I don't know, show of hands, that people think it's more the money or
So-
not the money.
Yeah, so before we come to Amanda, so what do you think? So if to be a successful business, think about what you're thinking about, is what's the most important thing that's going to make it successful? Focusing on the money or focusing on the, whatever it is, changing the world, having the impact you want to have? Which one?
So can I just ask something?
Yeah,
Say, for example, I'm making cakes.
yeah,
I certainly am not going to be changing the world with my cakes
Right.
or anything like
Sure,
as
sure.
profound as everybody, seems to think.
yeah, we were going a bit deeper one
No,
stage, weren't we?
so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
said
yeah.
to you that I think that, I don't know what everyone else does, but say, for example, I want to make cakes. First of all, I digress. It is about, obviously, I want to invest in a business that makes cakes to make money.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to say that, I'm in it for I don't know, the changes. Maybe I'll employ 10 people, that will be the change.
Yeah.
But other than that,
But also, I think you've probably got a product that's better than somebody else's.
well, I think it is better.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct. So, and that is the change, right? So you're creating something that you think, do you know what? My cakes are better than this. And I have a client who sells £1 million of cakes a month, and he has cafes in central London. He's not trying to, grow green trees and change, climate, but he's got a great business and he sells fancy cakes that sells like a hot cake. And so there's no, you don't have to feel guilty about that. I think business is created to make money.
Yeah.
So that's why I was just another question I was going to say. How do we, if I come to you with saying I want to make cakes, are you going to look at me and say, okay, perhaps I can invest in you, or do I have to come with some profound product and great new idea?
But are cakes your passion?
What?
Are you passionate about baking?
I'm just saying,
No,
yes, am I passionate? You see, that also gets me. I don't understand it. Am I passionate? Do I make cakes every day? Do I
Or do you
eat,
enjoy
drink,
it?
and sleep cakes? No. Do I like baking? Yes. Do I want to do something at this stage of my life? Yes. So,
Great.
and
Great.
this is something that I know that I can do and I'm good at, but I don't think it's profound.
Yeah, and look, and this is a great point, because we see so many businesses, I'll come to you, Amanda, in a minute on this, is that everyone's take on what this is about is different. And there are some people who want to, change the world, who want to make, solve climate change, and, and there are some people who want to make great cakes. There are some people who want to kind of share their inspiration. There was some kind of, folk here the other day, somebody wants to share their art with other people. And that's your thing, that's your personal thing. And you have to respect that, so I guess the question we're asking is, whatever your thing is, if it's, what I'm hearing from, certainly from Franklin and Mary, is that in different degrees, if it doesn't matter what the thing is, I just want to make money, just be a little bit careful about that. If I do care about what the thing is, whether it's a great cake or great art or, changing the planet, it's fine to want to make money because you want to do more of it and you want to pay the bills, of course, that's okay. Just making sure there's both in that picture, I think,
The
is...
balance, yeah.
But Amanda, you've been very patient. What do you... Oh, I didn't see. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Andre, hi.
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 So I just want to add to that. I think I always say it's about how you define success. Now, unfortunately, the traditional way of defining it is how much money you make it. And I would argue that's led the world to the place we're at now. I think there is a different type of entrepreneur evolving who's thinking more about what value can they bring.
Yeah.
So Lady spoke about her cake business. She's bringing value to her customers. They're tasting her cake, they're enjoying the experience. She's bringing, and she's getting reward for that. So I think if you can deliver value, then what you do, what you love doing, and what you're good at doing, then the money will come.
Yeah.
So I think it's important always to focus on just the bottom line. And I know you're working for PwC, where you're maybe a bit more than culture, slightly more driven by the bottom line. You have to be. But I think at a smaller stage of entrepreneurs, it's always better to focus on that.
Can I just add as well? I think the reason why, and I get the sentiment that a lot of people talk about being profound when you want to start a business, and when you boil it down to the core, it doesn't have to be profound. But I think what gets you through those dark nights as an entrepreneur is the why. Because the money, sometimes when you're a new startup, there isn't any. And when you're sitting there at 4 a.m. in the morning and there's nobody else awake and you're thinking to yourself, why am I doing this? if that passion and hunger and desire to make a change isn't there, you close your book and go back to work the next day and say, "Do you know what, I'm quitting this." So I think sometimes that's why a lot of entrepreneurs talk about that substance of what keeps you going, because you will fail a lot of the times, but it's about how many times can you keep getting back up and what is the why. So whatever your why is, that's up to you, but that why has to be strong enough to keep you going those dark, lonely nights.
Yeah. I think that's actually a really good point that you mentioned, Andre. So I guess outside of PwC Raise, I mentioned my art business.
Oh, yeah.
So initially I started it, honestly, I enjoyed art, I was passionate about art, and I realized that I could buy pretty cheap art from my home country, Nigeria, and sell it for a significant profit in the UK. And that's how it started. In the first year or so, it was that, and in my eyes, I made quite a bit of money. About a year went by and I realized I actually don't really like this, in terms of I felt as though I was just profiting off of artist work, artists back home who weren't able to, they weren't able to kind of reap that reward that I was getting from just buying and selling, and I just didn't like the feeling I was getting from that. So essentially parked it and pivoted the model slightly, where I was now essentially just working with artists of African backgrounds and exhibiting their work. So we're having one of our debut exhibition in a few months, and in a way that is still going to lead to profit for myself, but I feel as though it's still me kind of bringing in my passion and bringing in my values personally into the business. So I completely agree with that it can't solely be focusing on the bottom line, because sometimes it just won't align with who you are as an individual. But then if you still kind of follow your passion, follow who you are, your values, etc., in your business, then hopefully money does kind of follow as a reward. So
yeah. So Amanda, where are you on this? Where are you on the 50-50?
So I only work with businesses who want to kind of give back, but in really different ways.
Yeah.
So Flavour Street, they're working within a very small local community, and they've got home chefs who will cook food and then deliver it locally to others. So lovely idea, and they're giving back to their community. And then there's the kind of the opposite end of the spectrum is Donna, which is a 3D printing solution for huge aerospace companies. But actually, if you can stop the problems of the 3D printing right from the beginning and stop the printing, you save yourselves hundreds of thousands of pounds. So for the sustainability point of view, that's a good thing as well. But what I want to mention is our mentors, the Vissionaires mentors, because they are all established business people who freely give their time to Vissionaires startups to help them build their businesses. And I think it's the mentors and advisors who give their time freely, actually, the ones who been there, done that, made the money, but now actually giving back.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think all that comes, it's the point you made, Andre, is how do you measure success, how do you measure value? And it kind of, it can be different. It can be about, my cakes taste better. It can be, and it makes me think, when I went into entrepreneurship, my first taste of it was where I joined a team, and a bit like you, Frank, I was working financial services, and I was happy enough in doing that, and then I had a spell working in the music industry. That was kind of fun, and that was great. And then I joined a startup that was working in education, and I didn't realise that I could use my skills, which were financial at the time, I could use my skills in an education setting, and suddenly, like you were saying, I could see the difference that was being made down the line. And in that case, it was about helping people to improve their reading and writing. And I just hadn't thought about it. I thought, do I get to do that? And suddenly my whole kind of career and everything I thought about what I could do changed. Because I thought, I can get to do something where I'm moving something that it is something I deeply care about. And I didn't realise I cared about it until I started doing it. So, it changed. The point I'm making is it changes over time. It changes with your personal finance circumstances, it changes with your view of what you bring to the world, and it changes when people open doors for you, as happened in my case, to say, "Why don't you try this?" And you say, "Okay." And that's one of the big leaps, isn't it, of entrepreneurship, when you go okay to something that surprises you sometimes. So I'm going to change tack a little bit, and I want to come back to you to ask questions of us as a panel. So think about what you may want to ask us, okay, about anything you want. We had a great discussion yesterday about pricing. We may want to come back to that and everything. I want to touch on the subject of diversity in entrepreneurship, because I'm thinking, and Amanda and I were talking about this earlier on, that we know that there is, we work in an enlightened society, work in a democracy, work in a capitalist system, and it's a level playing field, except we know it isn't. And we know it's not, and there are things like, what Mary and I were talking earlier on, there was the Financial Times published the top 100 entrepreneurs in the UK, right, a couple of months ago. And I read this and I thought, oh, that's interesting, so I wonder who's on that. And there was Richard Branson, and there was, James Dyson, and all those folk. And then I looked at it more carefully, and I said, there's 100 names on here, how many of those are women? And guess how many in 100 names, the top 100 entrepreneurs in the UK were women?
No.
5? 9? 30? Okay. 3. 3. And 2 of those were in business with their husband. So that was kind of, does that count? I don't know. But anyway, the point is, it was like, and I would have guessed, maybe 20 or so, that's the kind of, which is, it shouldn't be 50 maybe, but anyway. So that really sort of pulled me back. I thought, so this is how far we have come. And, there are lots of reasons for that, and it's complicated, and there's lots of communities, in our experience, working in the field we have with Vissionaires, where we notice that there is a bias, that it is the playing field is not level. So I just wanted to get your take on it. It's a complicated subject, but brief. I'm going to start with Amanda, with the, what do you think might be the barriers that are preventing us from really drawing on the richness of everybody in our communities to have the right to have an idea, to have the right to have it heard, and the opportunity to be able to do something with it in a practical sense, including raising finance? What do you think is getting in the way?
Well, I think Mary talked about it earlier. The rich people, the angels, the high net worths, the venture capitalists who have the money, are not diverse enough. So when you talk about bias, they are investing in people who maybe look a lot like them.
Right.
And that's changing. It is changing.
It is, yeah.
Slowly.
But the start point is kind of a long way from where we need to be.
Yeah, it is. And there are far more women getting into, investing into businesses. But there just needs to be more black people, more people from ethnic minorities who are there actually doing these sorts of deals, and bringing in people like us who have those ideas.
Yeah. So what's your take on it, Mary?
So yeah, I mean, it's a very, we'll be here for hours if we
will
went
be here for hours,
into
but
detail. Completely agree with Amanda around, specifically when it comes to investing, it's a case of the individuals who have the capital to give out tend to, at least today, tend to not be of a completely diverse group themselves. That is one kind of level 1 barrier, and we can then digress from there to say, okay, why is that the case? But don't have time to do that. And yeah, I mean, if I think, so for instance, my partner just closed out a fundraise deal, 4 million USD, great news for them and their founders, all Nigerian. To the lead up of their investment round, some of the discussions they were having, a bit jokingly, but not jokingly, was, oh, we should go get a white man as an advisor to put on our pitch deck because that will increase our chances. I thought it was a bit of a joke, but it was a serious conversation that had to be had because that may at least allow the other person on the other side, the fund, to kind of feel a bit more connection or whatnot. So it is just a case of, mates do business with mates that they like, and so if there's a bit of a barrier, whether it's race, gender, etc. But that's kind of the negative side. Positive side is it is improving because at least the market knows that there is an issue. And when we speak about it, it kind of brings the issue forefront, which I think is really, really good. And two, I guess there's the more that one knows that there is an issue. So say you are a female founder and this potentially may be something that you come across. There's resources out there, to be honest, that one could go to see, okay, what are kind of easy tricks, not easy, what are tricks I can use to try and circumvent that barrier? So whether it is targeting high net worth individuals who have a history of investing in diverse founders, whether it's looking at similar startups who are early, who've raised maybe a couple £1,000 or £100,000, and they have a diverse team. Okay, who were their investors? Potentially they don't have that same barrier. So it's unfortunate that there needs to be that kind of education piece to go around that barrier, but I think those are ways, just at high level, some things that one can do as a diverse founder, and then just building out a network close to you who's also able to kind of help you along that journey, so it's not like you're doing it alone. But yeah, hopefully in like 5, 10, 15, 100 years from now, we will be having this conversation.
Yeah, how long do we have to have a conversation? Yeah. Anyway, Franklin, what's your take?
So yeah, I mean, I agree with some of the challenges that have been mentioned. What I would say is, for me, maybe I'm just too optimistic, but that's familiar with entrepreneurs too. But how do you give yourself the best opportunity to get funding or get support? And I think over the last 10 years or so, the digital age has made it far easier to be an entrepreneur, because in the olden days, you set up shop in your back garden and you needed money to be seen anywhere, right? Whereas, in recent years, there was a young lady who made £1 million worth of sales in an hour because she had a reasonable sort of presence on social media. Now, businesses now, and she was selling hair products, so again, she wasn't trying to change the world. It wasn't, anything, humongous. But businesses now tend to have a much shorter time frame than businesses of old. You think about entrepreneurship or businesses, there were 20, 30, 40-year-old family-long businesses, whereas now, because of the way we consume, and I think it's probably a consumer thing that's driving this, but people tend to look a lot more short-term in terms of, right, I need to make sure my business survives in this age where there's so much competition. And it may not be that your business lasts for 20 years. It might be 5 years, but within those 5 years, you can make yourself a lot of money if you're in the right place at the right time. So for me, it's all about your preparation and how do you get yourself in a position that before you go and ask for money, have you proven concept? Is there a community of people behind you? Is there, have you shown the effort that actually, I can go out there and use the resources that you mentioned are available to me to say that this is something worth backing. I think when you make it so compelling, it doesn't matter who you are. It gets to a stage where, for that young lady who made £1 million of sales in an hour, I don't think it matters what she looks like, whether she has green hair, blue hair, or whatever. If you're an investor, you think, yep, I want a piece of that. Yep. Because clearly whatever it is you're selling, it clearly works. And so if I can get involved in this, and investors, as nice as they can be, at the end of the day, it's about their money, right? They might like you as an individual, they might like your business, but they don't want to lose their money because you're nice, right? They want to make sure that they're going to get their money back. So if you can make it compelling for them, then you're giving yourselves the best chance possible.
Yeah. In that sense, and that's kind of the flip side, what we were talking about earlier is, so I'm the entrepreneur, I'm starting a business, I care about whatever it is, my product, my hair product I'm selling, and the investor really is on the other side of that kind of, money versus, kind of change the world debate, because they're giving you the money in return for some kind of return. So actually their mindset, absolutely, you can make that case, then it works.
Got a hand up.
Yeah. Where are we? Andre, sorry. You're hiding. Yeah.
Just a quick one. I want to add to that. I think what I've noticed is the business I've had in the past when I've tried to raise money, it's not always about, it is racist, or it is don't trust women or anything like that. Some of it's about risk. They see that certain groups are riskier than others. And this was a thing that was quite common, I think, in investment circles. There used to be guidebooks for investors about which groups of people were less risky than others. I don't think that happens anymore, but that was a thing like 10 years ago. So I think it is about not necessarily, like you say, it's great if you have £1 million of sales in an hour, but also it's about being able to recognise the risks in your businesses and be able to explain that to an investor. And I think it's understanding the risks and being able to help them feel comfortable with them and reduce them can also be a nice way to begin that relationship.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if it's implicit on us getting loads of advanced sales, then that's, again, a massive hurdle, right, for most entrepreneurs of any ethnicity. Or,
And it's back to the point earlier about you're building a relationship, which,
yeah.
you know.
Or go to America. Well, that's all nice.
Yeah.
Great idea, you should go to America.
Question at the back. Hi. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say I think that supports the point that you made earlier about speaking to people in your circle or people that you know, because they might not perceive you as risky as maybe someone else from another grouping or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think that makes sense.
Yeah. So starting with the third sign, people who you know and know you,
Yeah.
and work out from there.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So, so any questions? Anything that we've covered a lot of territory, and a lot of it's to do with, businesses that are kind of at the stage of, raising, maybe millions of pounds, maybe, and I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe there are some other questions about, well, okay, I'm at an earlier stage than that, and how do I pay the bills at the end of the month? Kind of, we hear those questions of how you make that balance. Is anybody thinking about that? Of like the question of when do I start my business? When, if I'm doing a job, when do I give up my job to change lanes, if you like? Are those kind of questions in your minds here today? Yeah. We talked about it, didn't we? Yeah. Do you want and yes, yeah.
There was one thing that was mentioned, I think it was maybe on the first day, where Phoebe said about paying yourself. So you're running a business, but not to get complacent by paying yourself too much.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking when you first start off a business, you're not going to be able to pay yourself at all, most likely. So in reality, how do you function?
Yeah.
Because you've got a business, you're paying the business. When you talk about expenses, do you include your own survival expenses, or is that deep just paying yourself? Or is paying yourself deep is giving yourself surplus so that you can enjoy it, go out for a meal, buy a pair of shoes? I don't under clarification on that. How do people do it practically?
So I can cover that.
Do you want to? Yeah, go on. Yeah,
so
it's really key point.
A few of the incubator startups, they are running their startup. They also have, kind of a side hustle of, what they were doing before. So one of them used to work in digital marketing and still does that on the side. Another one is teaching. So people are still kind of have got some income coming in, so they can cover those sorts of things. But there is a tipping point, and knowing when that tipping point is to go, right, I'm not doing that anymore, and I'm going to focus on the business. I think it is the big one there. But lots of people, I met lots at PwC as well, kind of doing what you're doing, but actually they have not left, the kind of the day job almost. They're doing both, and to a certain point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's that's certainly my experience. We see a lot of people that are earning the money to lead their lives, to put food on the table, to live somewhere, to pay the rent, to maybe go out when they can afford it, from something that is not the business that they're working on. And if you can do that, I think normally that's the route to go, because, and I think you said this, Mary, sometimes it can take, it might be 2 years before you're in a position where that thing that you've started is actually paying back some returns. And in the early years and early months and weeks, usually you're trying to figure out how to pay money into the business to get it moving. Like we heard yesterday from Debbie, those who yesterday started a daycare nursery with £300. And that was, it can be done. You can do things like that with a very, very small amount of investment, but usually there's something that has to come out of your pocket. and predicting when it's going to change from being the thing that you really want to do but you're not getting any money from it to the thing that replaces, you know, your job or whatever you're reliant on to live. That's always the really hard decision. I'm not sure I've got any kind of clever magic.
I was just going to mention that. I think, you know, when you're starting out, even the mechanisms that you use to put money into the business is important. So, for example, as a director, you can put direct loans. You can loan the money to the company. So the money of your own that you're putting into, because, you know, I mentioned before, you and the business are two different entities. You are not the business. So any money you're putting in, I think it's worthy. If there are any courses or, you know, workshops you go to around accountancy, I think that's a very crucial part for any business owner. Just knowing how to move the numbers and make it work. Bookkeeping is super important. So when it comes to that question of when do I pay myself, how much do I pay myself, is it salary, is it dividend, is it director's loans, all those things I think from an early stage is important to understand. I'm working with some young entrepreneurs now who are trying to take dividends. And I've asked them, well, how much profit have you made? And they said, well, we don't know. Well, how can you take profit if you haven't made how can you take dividends if you haven't made profit? So a lot of people are working backwards because they hear all these buzzwords and think, oh yes, I own this business, I should be able to take dividends, but it doesn't work that way. So, you know, get a good accountant, and, you know, if at the start you might just have to sort of try and upskill yourself as best as you can. And, you know, the transition, even once you say you quit your day job, the biggest frustration I have for entrepreneurs is how they live beyond their business, because a lot of people want to buy homes, and when you go to get a mortgage and they say, well, where's your pay slip? And they're like, well, I don't really have one, or I do, but it's only says $7,000 on it. But they're like, well, sorry, I can't give you a mortgage. But you're like, well, I've got a business that's doing really well. And they're like, well, sorry. So for a lot of entrepreneurs, that's a massive frustration, that they're stuck in this middle bit where the business is doing really well, but because of, you know, trying to keep it as profitable as possible, not putting their hands into the business, they can't show you a great salary or a great income, so therefore they struggle to get more. So that transition is very important to consider when you do make that move. So a lot of the time, people will use their day jobs to get a mortgage and make sure that they're settled or whatever, and then once they've got that, they can jump straight in. But it is all very individual, because we haven't always got that sort of magic globe to say, right, that would be the perfect time. So you just have to try and navigate it as best as you can.
Yeah. Is that okay? Yes.
So most people's impressions of investors is that they're waiting for the next big idea, or, you know, some totally new concept. And when people bring everyday ideas to them, they're sort of yawning, and it's like, oh, you know, I don't think this will work. But the fact of the matter is that most people do not have the next big idea. They just have something that somebody else has done, and they think, I can probably do this better, or I can do it as well, but somebody will like mine. So what I want to know is, how does this thinking affect the way investors look at people when they come to pitch? Do they look at them and think, this is a waste of time, or do they think, oh well, actually this might work? I mean, percentage-wise, are most people just shooed away, or do they? A lot of people get through it that, oh, this might work. Let's see how they do.
Mary, do you want to try that one again?
Yeah, it definitely depends on which kind of investors you're going to. So you technically have the what they call unicorn hunters, so venture capitalists who are basically the investors that you've kind of described, and they're essentially looking for the next Ubers, Deliveroo's, Airbnbs, etc. But then you also have other investors, for instance, almost tax-efficient investors. So, for instance, EIS funds and VCT funds, fancy terms for funds, but who are looking for businesses that are normal businesses doing well, who have steady return. So whenever they are assessing your business, they're not looking, oh, are you going to become Uber in 3 years' time? They're more so looking at you to say, is this a good standing business that is making good amount of money? Now this is still at the slightly later stage, so they're probably investing anywhere from like 50K upwards. But they have a completely different hat on than the meaner investors, or whatever we want to label them as. Also, if you're looking at high net worth individuals, so again, this is more at earlier stages, so essentially just rich people who are looking to invest into founders and businesses, you'll have these individuals who, some of them, they are hunting for, okay, which companies or people am I speaking to are, developing the new Uber or whatnot, but then they're also looking to put their money into just an investment, kind of a savings investment platform in a way that they could potentially just get a bit more return than if it was sitting in a bank. So all investors definitely aren't looking for unicorns, because you're right, most aren't going to be unicorns. So you've got a good chunk of them who are just looking for good standing businesses. And yeah, it's a case of just doing research before you reach out to an investor to see potentially where they are, because your discussion with them may need to be tweaked a bit depending on what kind of an investor they are.
Thank you.
No worries.
So I have a question at the back.
Yes, actually, this gentleman's been waiting, and I'll come back to you. Yes, and yeah, you go. Yeah.
Start working more or less properly. Is there any chance to refinance director's loan with your institution?
Sorry, I didn't catch it.
Start working properly, normally with profit. Is there any chance to refinance director's loan with your institution?
You want to refinance your director's loan?
Yeah.
Yeah, if for a starter, that'd be very difficult, because it's basically the metrics that banks or lenders will use is, well, what's the ability of this business to pay me back? And when you're very young as a business, there rarely is, because you're still proving concept, revenue's probably not that high. So that's why normally if you want to try and get an investor out or get somebody out, you have to find another investor to use their money to then, pay for whatever you need to pay, exit whoever you need to exit. So it's easier doing it from investors than trying to find any institutions to formally refinance.
Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yes, and at the back, and I'll come back to you. Yeah.
I am trying to open a better social care, and I am an accountant, and I done some study in bookkeeping and accounting software, banking software. As a stage 50, and I was thinking the problem is that for me it's difficult to have a view of where I need to start, because I don't think there is any problem as I done marketing as well. So basically I know how to create a connection in between people and how to find a sponsor and things like that. But the thing is that I am feeling a little bit blocked about the bank system and how to open a proper veterinary social care clinic.
Yeah.
Because this is what I would like to do. I would like to do something to look after child care and palliative care and also animal behavior care.
Okay. So you have the concept of the care clinic for which looks after children, animals, and maybe other support.
Yeah.
And is your question, what are the chances of getting a bank, for example, to provide finance to get started?
Yeah.
And how do you get going?
Yeah, because basically I got a very big plan.
Yeah.
That I make it bigger because I am not alone in that, and I would like Robert to make a nice art. Yeah, like a kind something nice and artistic that can improve a lot of different people.
Yeah.
And
So
give them even different way of work for the people.
Yeah.
I'm looking to do something that can develop support to each other.
Yeah.
Something nice for the neighborhood, something that can be collaboration with church. So there is plenty of ideas and plenty of content that I can get by asking around, going in inside, because with leading companies like that is nice, even for the nice things that can help other people with more needs.
Thank you. I'm just going to create I suggest you come up. I think we should have a conversation after this if you come up, because there's a few things that are going in my mind which is specific. But yeah. that's fine. I think there's if I can broaden the point so that we can think about it for other people in the room to help, because when you have a big idea like this, and and there's a lot of things going on in that, and probably to get started you need some investment to get going.
Yeah.
But so you have the idea but not the money to get it going.
Yeah.
How can you kind of just get that initial stage? Because I'm guessing, if you came to, Franklin's Bank and said, can we borrow money?
Yeah.
Probably go, oh, you're not trading yet.
Yeah.
And,
But
yeah.
I don't want to borrow money and not just a personal investment.
Yeah.
This
So,
is something that is a bit bigger than that.
yeah. So there's kind of it's a kind of chicken and egg. I have the idea, I don't have the investment. How do I steer? How do I get the kind of those first early steps? Any thoughts on that? I say, talk to me later about your specific point, but I think for a lot of people here, that's
First
a
early
big question.
steps of getting money, right? Or just make sure I want to.
I've got a big idea. I haven't started trading yet. It looks like I'm going to need money to do that. So where do I start? Do I have to kind of sell the idea before I can do anything to find someone who will? Is that what I have to do?
Yeah, I think there are some interesting angles of getting money to fund the idea and get the idea going. So for instance, in the UK, there are quite a few incubator and accelerator programs, as an example, which works with entrepreneurs who are still at the idea stage, and they give you as the person a lot of support in getting your business together, as an example, building out, business models, different things. And some of those accelerator programs also, by the end of it, can turn into some money to really help you push the business onwards. So having a look at some research on, are there any incubator or accelerator programs that can help me build out my idea and also give me some money. You mentioned grants earlier on. There's some grants specifically from the UK government that they can give you money grants in terms of your business at the idea stage. So there are different angles, not just traditional, bank loans or proper kind of funds from VCs or whatnot that you can look at. I think accelerator programs and incubator programs are a potential good thing to look at.
Yeah, and we have one of those.
Yeah, we have. So you're in the right place.
Yeah. But it's kind of, as we said, it's going to be different for every business. Right? Did you want to come in on that?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, the only other angle I was going to say was, of course, you've got the incubators, you've got the grant funding. It's always worthwhile, whatever your business is, go on Google and just say, are there any funding for X, whatever business, because you'd be surprised. But failing that, it's friends and family, unfortunately. When you go with your cap in hand and ask auntie and uncle, I don't want a Christmas present this year, I want you to help me invest in my business, or because a lot of companies start that way, right? We're taking money from people around them because it's hard to sell the dream when it's still very fresh sometimes. So, explore the options on the internet, look at all the incubator hubs. Vissionaires would be great to help you with some of the stuff they do here. And failing all of that, friends and family, exploit your network as much as you can.
Yeah. So we have a colleague from Westminster City Council who has some thoughts on this.
Well, yes, I get it. It's been great, being here today.
Yeah.
Just a few points on obviously grant funding, because you just mentioned it.
Yeah.
So Westminster City Council actually have a program where we try to upskill people that come into the borough in terms of funding grants. So whether you are a business or you are a community organisation, there's something that you can do which is free for everyone, which is you can sign up for one of our business libraries. You just Google business libraries, go to our website, and we actually pay for this software called Grant Finder. So essentially you go onto one of our libraries and you can search for grants. If you want to know a bit more on how to find the best grant for you, there's an information session for businesses on the 22nd of November at 10 a.m. And if you're a community organisation and you want to do the same thing, there's another information session the 22nd of November at 2 o'clock. All this information can also be found on the Westminster Business Unit website, where we give specific advice to businesses that want to come into Westminster and settle here, whether that's finding grant, affordable space, or some of our programs on incubation, on acceleration.
That's great.
But yeah, it's just a few points.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we'll come back to you.
Yeah.
So that just for everyone here, and I'm looking at Anna now, just to remind me, because we have the web links that your colleagues have sent to us, and particularly the grant finder, I was looking at it this morning, it's a phenomenal resource for all kinds of, and it's mainly for people who are resident in Westminster Borough, but actually there are some grants there that cover a bigger patch.
So yeah, I was going to say Westminster, local, but there's also some regional and national grants that you can find.
But Anna, remind us to make sure we send that out to everyone so that you all have that link, because it's a really that, you know, grant funding. Because all the things we've said, you still have to make the case, you have to explain why somebody would, you know, put money in, but it's there are, when you get through that, there are fewer strings attached because somebody else doesn't own your business, you still own it. So, you know, it's really recommended. Yes, please.
I was just going to ask if it was available for all boroughs or not. But you answered the question.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a resident to sign in to the library at all.
To the library, you can get into it, and then
then you can access it from there. And then there's some other softwares that you can access from home. Grant finance specifically, because it costs a lot of money to the council, is lodged into business libraries, but everything else you can access freely.
Yeah, that's good.
Can I just make a quick point in regards to funding? So I think when it comes to funding, another important bit that I always come across is how your business is structured. Are you a partnership? Are you a sole trader? Are you a limited company? What is your entity? Because sometimes you might not be able to invest if someone which is a sole trader. It's very difficult to try and get shares in a company, etc. Are you a charity? I mean, I think asking those questions in the initial outset, and a government website can guide you on that. If you go on there and look up what is a sole trader, what is a partnership, what is a limited company, that sometimes can really help you long term, because a lot of the time people have to switch their businesses from being a sole trader because they're making cakes at home and they are the business, to actually having staff and having to switch to a limited company, etc. So just bear that in mind in terms of what your entity looks like. Going back to my point that you are not the business exists without you, but what is that business? Because that's what any investor is investing into.
Yeah, really good point. And so I'm going to do a little plug for Vissionaires program. Who's been on the Vissionaires program workshops? A few people here. So some of the things we talked about, this is what we go through. It's a 6-day program. So if you're interested in that, you can go on our website. Yeah. They're free, and we take you through building a business plan, thinking through exactly the things we've said here. What kind of entity should you be? What's distinctive about your business? How you prepare a financial plan, and so on. So I'm going to move us on, and just to say, so we'll finish at 6 formally. I think, can you guys stay on for a little while after 6? If you need to go, that's okay.
I can check a few emails.
Okay.
To answer that.
Okay, right. Well, we'll see how that goes. But so most of us will be here. So if you want to come up, and I know you want to ask them, I think we should talk to you about your idea, because there was a lot in that. So we could talk informally. Before we do that, before I close, I'm going to ask another entrepreneur, Enzo Ottens. Here he is, Enzo. Who has got his own business that he's starting, but also the business happens to be a service for new startups. So you get 2 for 1 hearing from Enzo. So over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So hi everybody, my name is Enzo.
Yeah, be in the camera.
Yeah, of course. And I'm one of the co-founders of a company called Earner. You spell it slightly differently, so E-A-R-N-R. And before I started this company, I was full-time employed, and I was also a Deliveroo rider. So I delivered meals in the evenings and on the weekends. And after doing that for a little while, I started trading trainers. So I used to buy trainers from shops and sell them online. And what that basically meant that I was self-employed, which Franklin was talking about. And when you're self-employed, you need to start thinking about taxes a little bit more. So how much tax do you need to pay HMRC? How do I tell them about my business? And am I doing anything wrong, or how do I go through the whole process? And I found that really complicated. And I'm somebody that knows a little bit more about accounting. Like in my full-time job, I actually implemented accounting software for very large companies. So I'm a person that should know a lot about it, but even I was confused. And I found that this is actually a growing problem in the UK. So a lot more people are becoming self-employed. It's a lot easier to set up, and there's way more opportunities out there. As an example, 500,000 people in the UK alone sell on Etsy, and many of those people are self-employed, and therefore have to deal with a lot of pain points that I had to deal with. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I started Earner. So what we do is we connect with your bank account and help you prepare your tax return with you. And for anybody earning less than £3,000 a year in self-employed income, so again, outside of what your day job could be, we do that for free. So that means you can save a lot of money on accountants, which sometimes cost more than £500, which is a lot of money, especially if you don't earn that much yet. So that's the kind of business we do. If you have any questions in terms of accounting or anything finances, you can contact us via Instagram. So we have an Instagram account, or you can contact us directly via our website, that's earner.co.uk, or on our Instagram is Earner app. And that's kind of what I do during the day. But I guess very similar to what we've all discussed as well, like I've set up this business late last year. I started it kind of alongside my full-time job because similar to what we discussed here, it's very scary to kind of jump from doing something on the side to then doing it full-time and not having your day job to support you. But luckily we've done quite well, so we were able to raise a bit of funding, similar to what we discussed here, like through our network, friends, family who we discussed our ideas with, and went through many iterations of what should we actually do. So as an example, the first version of what we started was, we know that many people that are self-employed use their personal bank accounts. They don't have a separate bank account, which meant that it was very difficult to see how much money are you actually making. So when I was a Deliveroo driver, I didn't really know how much money I was making because you can see loads of things come through your bank account, loads of transactions, but actually doing the calculations isn't something that I was really interested in. And I, again, wasn't alone, a lot of people did that. So that was the first iteration of our app. But then started going more and more into tax. And most recently, we raised a bit of funding through angel investors and venture capital, and kind of gone through the whole story. So it's been quite exciting. But at the core of what we're doing is helping people start their businesses, whether it's a side hustle, whether it is being self-employed or even small business. So if there's anybody that I can help, feel free to just ask any questions. So, thank you.
And thank you very much indeed. So, can you hang around for a little bit if people want to talk?
Of course, yeah, I'll be here.
Well, look, thank you very much. I'm just going to wrap up and to say at the end, invite you to, if you want to kind of speak to us. That's something you may need to go, but I'll certainly be around. I know Man will be around for a good half hour. Just to say, first of all, thank you very much for coming. And some of you have been you've stuck with us through the whole journey, through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and there's another one tomorrow, which is going to be about making the perfect pitch. We'll have a slightly shorter session like this with two really interesting entrepreneurs. One who is one of the in the incubator with Amanda, who's at the very start of their journey, and one who is kind of a little bit like me, a little bit further along in their journey. And you will hear from them both about their experience, but also about pitching, sales pitching. There's a chance, if you want to, that you can do a pitch tomorrow with us. And I know some of you already signed up for that. And if you want to sign up, please talk to Anna, there she is at the back, and let her know. And as I said before that, the QR code, if you want to know who we are and want to kind of connect with us on LinkedIn, then please do that. The most important thing I have to do now is to thank our panelists. I want to thank Enzo for his presentation. He's been hanging around, and also wish him great success with his business. Every time I hear him speak, I learn a little bit more about it, and I'm kind of more intrigued. And I wish I'd known him about 20 years ago. I'd like to thank Franklin from Coots. I'd like to thank Mary from PwC, and I'd like to thank Amanda from the Amazing Visionaires. I'm not biased. Thank you all very much indeed.